It seems like after an initial dead market was reported for Nikola Vucevic and Zach LaVine, over the last 2 days, we've heard that teams could be really interested in making a move for either Zach LaVine or Nikola Vucevic. And I'm going to talk about why AK, the Bulls' president of basketball operations, Arturas Karnisovas, may finally be operating like he should in running a team. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Plus, we're going to talk about the trade market for Lonzo Ball, which seems to also be growing, and preview tonight's game against the Boston Celtics. All that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into it for today, and I want to start off with this. Over the last 2 days, we've had reports on the Miami Heat being interested in Nikola Vucevic yesterday. The day before that, it was the Denver Nuggets have had serious conversations about making a move for Zach LaVine the day before that. And so this is kind of a reinvigoration of where the Chicago Bulls, trade market has been. We just heard around this time last week that despite Zach LaVine and Nikola Vucevic's season so far, that it hasn't really done much to drum up more interest in either player. Well, over the last couple of days, that mindset has seemed to shift a little bit, and especially with the Denver Nuggets deal. And like I pointed out when we broke that deal down, Michael Porter Jr. just has to be involved in that trade, which naturally is going to raise up a little bit more of the market value and what the expectation is and what you can get back, or what you can send out to obtain Zach LaVine. And that's kind of the best deal that we've heard in the last few years when it comes down to Zach LaVine, the last year and a half, right? And so after that, I started, you guys know, I'm a bit of a conspiracy theorist. I started looking at kind of reading some of the tea leaves, right? And with Denver, of course, we know Arturas Karnisovas came from being the assistant GM with that team. He's on that front office when they drafted Michael Porter Jr. And, so that means that Arturas is going to have kind of the inside edge on knowing the medicals of Michael Porter Jr., what and how that degenerative back issue could shape out, even if it matters, right? Let's be clear here, right? While getting back Michael Porter Jr., somebody who can slot right into what the Chicago Bulls are doing, if he does end up missing significant time for the Bulls, it's because, the Bulls in theoretically trying to keep their top 10 pick. That's a thing there, right? But then when you also look at the fact that Wes Unseld Jr., who's on the Bulls bench, was a huge part in the development of Michael Porter Jr. Michael Porter Jr. credits Russ Unseld Jr. with helping him be prepared and understand what it was going to take to be successful at the NBA level. And so here's the thing, right? Could this be something that is a workaround between two franchises that are trying to drum up interest? Yes, I want to be clear that I do think that is a possibility, that the Denver Nuggets, when you look at them in their relationship with the relationship that they have with Arturas Karnisovas, and him and the GM there have worked hand in hand before, that this could be a, hey, you scratch my back, I scratch your back type thing. And even if that is the case, it's no negative in that at all. I want to be clear there. There is not a single negative in there at all, at least not for me, right? I don't think that is. If that's what needs to get done to get deals done in the NBA, that's what you're supposed to do. That's what good GMs and good people who run basketball organizations, they do. They leverage relationships to try to get in and figure out some things. And I think that's a huge part in all of this, right? If the Bulls are truly leveraging that relationship and leveraging, if Arturas is leveraging that to try to get a deal done, it's one of the most sensible things that the team has done in quite a while, right? And there's a lot of reasons why a deal to the Denver Nuggets makes a lot of sense for Zach LaVine as well, right? Now, there is that sense of that 15% trade kicker, which works out as well. Shout out to Bulls Troy, who actually got me right on this one with his tweet. So the way that it works out is that it's 15% over the remaining value of the contract. So that will work out to about $21 million extra for the Chicago Bulls to pay out over the 3 years remaining on his contract. Now, $21 million to get a young player. And I think also when you look at it, you have to also factor in, okay, what is going to happen after that, right? What is going to happen, with other deals? And the way I look at it is this, is that between trading Nikola Vucevic and Zach LaVine, if you're able to turn Nikola Vucevic and Zach LaVine into Michael Porter Jr., a couple of first-round picks, and you either get Nikola Jovic back, a young player. You're not getting Peyton Watson back. You're just not getting that back, right? I've seen people ask for that. But if you're able to get those things back, that's a hell of a haul for two players that are older and you're trying to move on while your roster's getting younger. And then that brings us to the Miami Heat piece of this, right? When you look at the as well as how Dan Craig is on the end of the Bulls bench as well, right? Working with Billy Donovan, he's one of the assistant coaches here. He's another guy that's been head of player development. And you have the Miami Heat now as a team that's interested in Nikola Vucevic. Maybe Arturas is also using Dan Craig in the sense that, hey, put me in, help me negotiate this with Pat Riley. Let's bridge some gaps here, right? And again, this is all theory on my part. We've heard nothing that substantiates this, but I do think that there's some smoke there. That the fact that just a week ago, less than 7 days ago, we heard that there was no interest for Zach LaVine and Nikola Vucevic, really. And then now the two teams that are interested are both teams that are gearing in for playoff runs. They want to try to go on deep runs. They want to actually try to win something meaningful this season. And they have relationships with pieces that are on this Bulls roster, right? So I think that is something to look at. And I think that does help some things. That happens a lot in the NBA, more so than we know, right? Because we're not always looking at who's the assistant GM, who's the assistant coaches, right? That help things. So when you look at right now, it's not just that in surface level, right? Of course, it is the fact that where the Nuggets rank at 28th in the NBA of drives per game. Zach LaVine helps that, right? He helps also with 3-pointers. When you look at Zach LaVine, he's attempted 10.2 3-pointers per 100 possessions. Michael Porter Jr. is only at 8 in that, so he helps their 3-point volume, which is something the Denver Nuggets need. There's a lot of reason why this trade could work out for both sides. Now, I know not every Bulls fans are all in for this Denver Nuggets thing and whatever else. I think even less are in on the Miami Heat deal because a lot of Bulls fans are looking and saying, we got to get Khalil Ware back in that. I'm not sure that the Miami Heat want to include Khalil Ware. I'm just going to be 100% honest with you guys on that. I get it. I understand why Bulls fans want Khalil Ware back. Hell, I said it. If the Bulls can get Khalil Ware included in this deal, it'd be the best trade that Arturas Karnisovas ever made. And I know that, Khalil Ware has had his foot injuries and things like that, but I still look at him and he's a rookie. We've seen rookies they've missed their whole entire seasons, but that potential is still there in Khalil Ware and what he can bring as a more modern big man that can still stretch the floor a little bit. They can switch and guard multiple positions. That's a solid rim runner and protector. So if they're able to get that, great, right? But, it's still, all just kind of coming together, and we got to still see what's going to happen. Now, there's still a higher chance than not that neither one of these deals go down. And I think that's just, maybe that's me being a little bit protective over my hopes and desires and things like that. But, I think that these are two deals that really make a lot of sense for both sides, and it makes sense that the teams will be interested. Now, I think the Miami Heat piece also comes down to what they decide to do with Jimmy Butler. No, the Bulls are not getting Jimmy Butler back. No, we're not getting Bam back. I already saw a couple of people in the comment section bringing that up. That's probably not going to happen. But these are deals that make sense for both sides. It just makes sense for both sides. Yes, you have to take back Zeke Naji, who was a terrible contract when it comes down to it. He's owed 3 years for $23 million, and he's an unplayable player. He's an unplayable player. He'll probably wind up in the G League, but maybe they look at it as a reclamation project. Maybe the Bulls think that they can, maybe try to work some stuff out of him. He's still a very young player. I don't know, right? And then you also got to look at, Torrey Craig and eliminating that. Can you get Javon Carter included in one of these deals? I think the Miami Heat deal, though, the Miami Heat probably would be interested in THT, right? And I get it. THT has been great for the Bulls. Make no mistake about it. But if it means you getting Khalil Ware, I tell you what, I love THT and what he's done for this team and how the heart that he's played with for this team. But I'd rather take my shot at the young guy, personally. And not to say that THT, it's always, when you judge by hairlines, you'll think he's 44, but he's really still young. So that's what it comes down to. And we'll see what happens there, right? But don't overlook that this all could be a ploy. Calvin Booth, who is the executive over with the Nuggets, he does have a history with Karnisovas, of course, dating back to Arturas being there. And leaking this could actually have done wonders for both franchises as far as on the trade market, and it could actually help drum up some trade value for Nikola Vucevic. So, and if that ends up being the case for both franchises, if they did use some relationships to leak some things to help the trade value, again, that's something that I want my front office doing. You need to use every tactic that you have at your disposal if it means you getting back value to help your team in the future and in the present. That's just the way that I look at it. I don't care what tactic you got to do. As long as you're not breaking rules and you get hit for tampering down the road and we lose some picks for it, I'm all for it, right? And I think that's a big thing here for this Bulls team as well, and we'll see. We'll see what happens. Overall, I think that the Bulls and this recent trade interest for both these players is happening at the right time, right? More players have become available now with trade. I think like 90% of the league is available to be traded now, and that's a big thing. And we're gearing up to that dash to the trade deadline, which is February 8th, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And so between now and then, you're going to hear a lot of things, and you may even start seeing more and more deals. We already saw the Dennis Schroeder deal go down, right, and the Thomas Bryant deal go down. So teams are going to start dealing, and as that starts dealing, it kind of starts setting an expectation in the market. Rumors also can start doing that, and so there's a lot to really look at it when it comes down to it. And I've seen my Bulls fans ask, could the Bulls reroute Michael Porter Jr.? And that is a possibility as well, right? I saw a trade of rerouting Michael Porter Jr. to the Orlando Magic. They have a lot of forwards there. I don't know that. I saw another one rerouting Michael Porter Jr. to the Detroit Pistons. So Zach LaVine and Torrey Craig to the Nuggets. Michael Porter Jr., Zeke Naji, and a future second-round pick to the Pistons. And then the Bulls would take Tim Hardaway Jr., Isaiah Stewart, but they get a future top 8 protected first-round pick from the Pistons. I'm not mad at that. That doesn't get you the type of talent that Michael Porter Jr. is, but it does make your cap sheet a little bit clean. Still adds another guard to your team, though. And then I even saw one that would be sending Michael Porter Jr. to the Lakers. You'd be getting D'Angelo Russell, Gabe Vincent, 2 future second-round picks, and a 2031 protected first-round pick from the Nuggets. I'm not as enticed by that one. You guys know I'm just not a D'Angelo Russell fan at all, and I think our point guard is already kind of deep there. But there's a lot of things that are going around, and keep watching out for the Bulls. I think that this is kind of reinvigorating not only the market, but people thinking what the possibilities are for the Chicago Bulls as this keeps going on. And with that said, we also got an article coming out for the teams that could be interested in Lonzo Ball. This one coming from Scotty White, who is not somebody I've read a lot of his articles on, but he points out this. So there's 3 teams that he has that could be interested in Lonzo Ball leading into the trade deadline, and all these teams make some sense. So if the Bulls are able to flip Zach LaVine, Nikola Vucevic, and Lonzo Ball all before this trade deadline, that would be more activity than what Arturas Karnisovas did the last 24 months in just a couple of months. But with that said, let's go over this list of teams, right? First one up that he has on this list is the Milwaukee Bucks. He says the one team to watch out for Lonzo is the Milwaukee Bucks. The Bucks got off to a slow start this season, and they have settled in and are starting to look better. Milwaukee's now 14-11, and they have been looking like a team that everyone expected them to be. If the Bucks want to win another championship, they probably do need something different, as things haven't worked out the last couple of years. Ball could be a valuable addition for them, and he could likely be a fan going to a team that could have a potential playoff run. Now, the Milwaukee Bucks matching the contract of Lonzo Ball is the thing that we have to look out here, right? I think we have to look at this for all the teams that could be that are mentioned as being interested in Zo, because it's fine to say that a player's skill set matches a team, but how do you get that player to that team? Now, the Milwaukee Bucks do have contracts that, like Brook Lopez, would match it right away. He has an expiring contract, but he's really important in what that team does. I don't foresee that. Bobby Portis, he does have a player option next year, $12.5 million. It gets you a lot of the way there, but they would need to send another player over, and that could get a little difficult. I don't see the clear path as far as what makes sense for them, considering they're playing better, and they don't have like a big expiring dead contract to send over. But, you never know if a team becomes desperate. I can see the Lonzo fit there. I just don't necessarily see the path to get him a trade that makes sense for both sides. Now, maybe you get a third team involved. Maybe that's the case, but you'll see there. The next team that they brought up is the Phoenix Suns. Now, this is one that I'm not going to lie. It kind of made me scratch my head a little bit, because the Phoenix Suns got a point guard down there that has really been doing everything that they needed him to do, right? I think that Tyus Jones has been a damn near perfect point guard for them. Now, he does have some issues shooting sometimes. He's not really a scorer, but he is still efficient. The assist-to-turnover ratio is there. Could you play Lonzo and Tyus together? Maybe, right? Tyus Jones only has a $2 million contract, so it's not like they could take a risk there. And so they do have some contracts that can match. Yusuf Nurkic, which is a player that reportedly they could be open, but he's been playing really well for them, so I doubt that. Grayson Allen's been playing really well for them, and I know the Bulls fans don't want him there. They have some expirings that they could use, but I don't know if I see why they could be interested, especially whatever happens with Bradley Beal. And maybe it's more of the Bulls being involved as a third team if they move Bradley Beal to a different team, which is something that has been rumored. If that happens, then I actually see the fit even maybe a little bit better, right? So keep that out in mind. But let me know what you guys think on the Phoenix Suns being interested in that. And they in the article to read that, it says another team to watch here is the Phoenix Suns. The Suns have had some elite talent for a while, but they haven't been able to get over the hump. They have Kevin Durant and Booker, but it looks like they may need one more piece. Ball can end up being a valuable addition to the team if he can join and stay healthy. Kind of see that. Next up is the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, if Embiid was healthy, I could probably see this a little bit more. They did lose Jared McCain. When you look at it, they say, and in the article it says this. Lastly, the 76ers could be a good fit as they have been battling injury trouble themselves. They want to add a player that missed 2.5 years of injury, but saying obviously bringing in another player that has been struggling with injuries wouldn't be ideal, but hopefully Ball can stay healthy on a consistent basis as the season goes on. Ball hasn't been able to play a lot this season, but it would be interesting to see how this draft stock changes in the coming months before the trade deadline as he can hopefully play more. Now, looking at the Phoenix Suns in this one, right? I'm sorry, the Philadelphia 76ers in this one. It's all about, and like I said, what I'm looking at is, do they have the contracts that can match it? And while they have a top heavy, right? Joel making 51, Paul George making 49, Tyrese Maxey making 35. They don't have any other big contracts. Now, they do have some contracts that they can combine, right? Caleb Martin's $8 million to get you part of the way there. Kenyon Martin Jr. maybe would be a player that at almost $8 million gets you a lot of the part of the way there as well. Eric Gordon, I think, I don't know if they want to let him go, but then again, whatever happens there. So, they have some contracts that they can try to make work as well. And, it's not necessarily with Lonzo, it's not as big as looking at the second tax apron because he's expiring at the end of the year. So you just have to match the salary this year. So it is something to look at, but I don't know if it's as clear of a path going forward. But for what it's worth, the Philadelphia 76ers, the Phoenix Suns, and the Milwaukee Bucks named as teams that could be interested in Lonzo Ball going into the season. Now, we already heard things like the Charlotte Hornets. We've heard things like that, mainly because of his brother LaMelo being there. But it'll be something interesting to watch what AK does leading into this trade deadline and how aggressive he really is. And I do think that if this Denver Nuggets trade goes down and you get Michael Porter Jr. and some form of a first-round pick, whether it's protected or not, it sets off a really good start to the trade deadline for the Bulls. At that point, it's up to AK to nail it home for the rest of the way, but it also kind of sets that clear direction that we've been talking about that the Bulls have lacked for quite a while as well. So let me know what you guys think on all that down below. The Bulls do have a game today. It's been a while since we played actual basketball against the Boston Celtics today. And as I like to preview games, you guys know I don't predict wins and losses. I talk about what the team can do to win games. And I tell you what, if the Bulls want to win this game against Boston, the margin of error is very, 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 very small, meaning that their offense has to be elite. They cannot shoot have a 32% night from three if they want to match with the Boston Celtics in the rate that they have 3-point. This can turn into an absolute 3-point shootout, right? We could see one of those games where people are like, see, this is what's wrong with the modern NBA, too much 3-point shooting. That's absolutely what you can see here. When you look at the Boston Celtics, they're averaging 119 points per game. The Chicago Bulls are a couple steps down for them, averaging 118.9. So, offensively, when you just look at it on paper, yeah, these teams are both putting up high volume of threes, high volume of shots. The Bulls run with a quicker pace. They're going to try to take advantage of that. The difference, as always it is the defense. The Boston Celtics have the 7th best defense, only allowing 109 points per game, whereas the Chicago Bulls average allowing 121.9, basically 122 points per game. The only team worse than them is the Washington Wizards when it comes to defense. So, because the Bulls don't have that defensive gear that the Boston Celtics can kick it into, you're going to need execution on that defensive side of the ball. You're going to need to operate like a team that has some wits about yourself on the defensive side of the ball, giving effort, right? If you can give effort and your offense can be elite, you have a chance. You have a chance. And it's any given night that a team can win in the NBA. Any given night. But this is a Boston Celtics team that is so good at taking away what other teams are best at, while just maximizing what they're great at, and that's shooting the three ball. They're going to come at you with a high volume. They're going to come out, and I would not be surprised if the Boston Celtics don't come out and try to put this game away early, right? Because listen, you got Jayson Tatum playing some of his best basketball, 28 points per game, 23 points per game from Brown. Kristaps Porzingis, who's played 7 games, he's averaging 19 and 7, right? You got 17 points from Derek White, 16 points from Peyton Pritchard, who's probably the 6th man of the year this year. This is going to be a difficult game for the Bulls, and they're going to have to be on their P's and Q's to start this motherfucker off. And let's hope that they can. We'll see. Make sure you guys are following the show at Bull Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. bullcentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that's thanks to you lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.